Accessing library computer data.
And to make sure that history never forgets the name Enterprise.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Pensky Podcast. You haven't tuned in before, this is a podcast where we are running through all 178 episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, giving our thoughts and feelings about each and every one. Right now we're up to episode 7 of season 3. It's called The Enemy. This one was directed by David Carson, written by David Kemper and Michael Piller, and it aired back on November 6, 1989. In this one, Lieutenant Commander Geordi LaForge is trapped on an inhospitable planet hazardous to human life with a Romulan. The two adversaries must work together if they wish to survive. Aboard the Enterprise, Lieutenant Worf is forced with a conflict between his duty as a Starfleet officer and his Klingon prejudice against Romulans. Captain Picard, meanwhile, must contend with a Romulan warbird intent on recovering their own personnel. We're going to be joined by Modi Operandus to talk about this one. That one came out a little bit mushy mouth. We're going to be joined by Modi to talk about The Enemy right after this.
Shoes are getting full of sand. I just hate that, don't you?
Name and rank.
Lieutenant Commander Geordi LaForge. I don't think I got yours.
A Romulan ship will arrive shortly. You will accompany me on board.
I don't think so. See, we heard your message too, and well, the fleet's in, Commodore. Sky's full of Federation ships.
You're lying.
I never lie when I've got sand in my shoes, Commodore.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the Pensky Podcast, and we're joined by Modi Operandus to talk about The Enemy. Modi, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. Welcome to the podcast on a early Saturday morning, I guess, right? How's this is going to be your first episode of season 3?
Yes.
And
the difference is already noticeable in this episode here.
Yeah, it's everyone says it. You know, it's such a drastic change. It's like remarkable, the jump from season 2 to season 3. And we're going to start off with The Enemy. So The Enemy, I guess, is going to be a pretty big change from the last episode 2 episode you watched, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But what'd you think about this episode?
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I thought the cold open, like, I can tell how good an episode's going to be just based on how good the cold open is.
Yeah.
And I like that they just drop you into it. Don't like worry about explaining what you're doing and that kind of thing. Just let you catch up as a viewer.
Right.
And it's good. I liked it. Cold open from start to finish. It's pretty decent.
You know what I thought was interesting? I don't know if this is the first time they've done it in the cold open. But it was nice. This was the first time I noticed that they had the captain's log after the cold open.
Yeah,
and it's
true.
It's super helpful because me and Clay always laugh about the fact that the captain's log when the episode opens usually contains information about what's going on, but you're not like focused in on the show yet, so you hardly ever absorb what he's saying.
Right.
And this time it's nice because they show you what's happening, and then Picard's log after the credits roll is kind of a recap, so you're sort of aware of what's happening.
Yeah.
And it's much more effective.
Handling it.
Yeah.
Because you have to do the whole sitcom thing of they just came back from commercial break. Let's explain what just happened at the end of the previous scene.
Right.
But it's also, as far as a pacing thing, the captain's log is a difficult thing to start an episode with because it's not very interesting generally. There's not a lot like gripping about the captain's log. But when you do it after something happened and he's explaining what you just saw, that works a lot better, actually.
Right, yeah, because if you don't have context, it just sounds like a bunch of made-up planet names.
It is.
So it's difficult to, like, really pay attention to. I'm looking at the list here. So the last season 2 episode you watched was The Emissary with me.
Okay.
Which was the clip show, so 2 from the end. But yeah, it's been so. This is your first appearance of the new uniforms. What did you think of the new uniforms?
New uniforms are great.
New uniforms,
I'm liking them.
Good. I think the show looks much like on a technical level. The film grain or whatever they're using is much superior to season 2. Mm-hmm. This as a quick recap. This is the episode of Geordi. The Enterprise hears a distress call from a planet. They beam down, and it's this electromagnetic storm or something that's going on, and it's making people's neurons all screwed up, so you can't stay there for too long. And Geordi falls down a hole, ends up in a cave, and they have to leave him there. And he finds crashed Romulans who have been on this planet. They were the ones that's sending out this SOS. the Enterprise, Riker, and Worf take one of the Romulans back up to the ship. They leave Geordi on the planet. Geordi runs into another Romulan. And then the Enterprise has to deal with the Romulans wanting to rescue their man and coming into Federation territory. And Worf has a subplot about the Romulan that Riker and he bring back to the Enterprise is dying and he needs a blood transfusion. And apparently Worf is the only person on board who can give him the proper blood to save his life. So it's like a little ethical drama for Worf. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say that I thought the best part of this storyline is the Worf storyline.
It was a good B-plot that's in service to the A-plot, I thought.
Yeah. It's a little strange that it doesn't really resolve itself.
Well, it does. I mean, the guy dies. Like, he made his choice and he let the guy die, basically.
He does, but...
So, I mean, that's a resolution in itself. He came to terms with it, but the guy died anyways because he was stubborn, basically.
Right. But his, like, the death... Worf's refusal to do anything didn't really impact the story after that.
That's true.
You know, because Picard goes through the whole thing of being like, if this man dies, it's going to be very, very difficult to explain to Tomalak what happened. And he dies, and then Tomalak gets upset about it, but then the other guy is there to sort of fix the situation, the other Romulan.
Well, yeah, but if that other Romulan had been found on the planet, Picard would have been up a creek there.
Yeah, it would have been a little bit more difficult to explain what was actually happening. I just liked the it's when I say it doesn't resolve, I mean Worf does make a choice about what he wants to do.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just and it's not the choice that you would really expect. You would have thought that Picard's pep talk would have talked him into saving this guy's life. The Romulan makes it a little easier for him when he's like, fuck you, basically.
Screw you, man. Yeah.
I don't even want your blood.
Right.
It makes it a little easier for Worf. But I liked I think it's the strongest just because it's unpredictable. The other two storylines are fairly standard stuff.
Yeah. That's true.
You haven't been watching, but this is the second Geordi LaForge focused episode in a row as well.
Okay.
Maybe this one's not particularly Geordi focused, but he's like a big part of it.
I'd say it's pretty Geordi focused. He's a big part of it. That really, I mean, his performance also does pretty well on the planet too.
Yeah, he does. I liked the It felt like a very Geordi character thing where he finds the rocks and then melts it into a like climbing tool. Basically makes
MacGyver's it. Yeah.
All without explaining what he was doing vocally, which is kind of unique.
I like that too.
Yeah. That's definitely an early season thing where he would have like just talked to himself about what he's doing.
Yeah,
and
it's like, I just need to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, if I find these
I
rocks...
like that they're giving us some credit here now.
Yes.
Finally.
Yeah, they're a lot more intelligent. It's a new showrunner. This is now Michael Piller, who's going to be with the show for the rest of the series, and he's taking charge. I just thought that the Geordi storyline is fairly predictable. It kind of plays off his blindness nicely. That's kind of a nice touch. Yeah. The Romulan he's stuck with is fine. There's nothing particularly wrong with him. The two superior actors are definitely the Picard and Tomalak standoff. Mm-hmm. What do you think? How would you rate the storylines out of those three? Worf, Geordi, and then Picard on the ship.
I would probably put Picard last, actually.
Yeah,
that storyline last. I would put Geordi probably first.
Okay,
and Worf second. Yeah.
It's the change that we've always been talking about with these season 3 things, where these plot lines are now actually interacting with each other. They're going places,
actually dovetailing back together again at the end.
Yeah.
It works nicely.
Yep. The tone is the same for all of them. We've watched 2 episodes. We're going to be podcasting about 2. And I think that's going to be more of a complaint of the second episode. But the tone here meshes well with everything. It feels very clean. It's a very... I don't know if this episode is better than I remember it. I think it's good. I think it's extremely solid, I think.
It's a definitely solid episode.
Yeah, which is different coming from season 2 and everything. Let's see. I did like the fact that Geordi created his tools. My biggest problem... What was your biggest problem with the episode, if you had to pick one?
I don't know. Sometimes Geordi's...
Burton.
LeVar Burton's performance, was a little hammy on the planet. It was like, I'm blind. Like that kind of line.
Yeah,
it's just very weird lines like that.
He's
I don't know. Got a little smarmy with the Commodore references. Like he was trying to be like, I don't know. Something's off about his performance sometimes to me.
Yeah, he's
I don't. Yeah.
He's very
I will be your eyes line from the Romulan was also my least favorite part. I will be your eyes.
He is a little hammy. He was always I can't remember if we talked about it, but in the first or second season, he had these weird moments where he'd be like, woo! Like he'd randomly woo about things.
Yes.
And he kind of does that here. He does the thing that always drives me crazy if you're like working with someone and they like aggressively like sort of pat you on, like not pat, they like aggressively hit you on the back. It's one of those things that causes like rage in me when it happens and then it quickly goes away. That's just me personally, but he's very we were watching it, and my wife was just sort of using her laptop next to me, and she's just like, during their scene on the planet, she's like, do you think LeVar Burton is a good actor? And I think that's kind of the same lines. Like, what do you think?
I know. I like the guy. I really want to say he's a good actor, but I can't. I just don't think he is, actually.
Yeah, I think he's
not given a whole lot. I mean, he's complained about it. I've seen in interviews and that kind of thing of like how they took away his eyes to like play the character, and you need those as an actor.
Right.
But at the same time, there's just so many choices he makes that don't. I don't know. There's this little like when he's calling the guy Commodore and that kind of thing. It just like it doesn't ring super authentic to me for some reason. It could from the character, but it doesn't from him, kind of thing.
Right, exactly. I don't think the lines are bad. His sort of delivery of them feels stilted.
Yeah. I want to like him. I really do.
Yeah,
but
he's very big, like very broad, sort of not super broad, but he's sort of very overly theatrical and not in a good way. It's difficult to describe. He's like the opposite of
some
Troy.
Of that, I mean, comes from him having to have, like he says, the visor causes you have to act differently. I'm sure, kind of how Worf does things too, or the,
right. Every Worf expression is always very like
big and broad.
Yeah, size heavily and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know about LaForge. It's also funny because we've had 2 episodes in a row, which just seems like poor planning from a production standpoint. At least air them a couple episodes apart. But we've had a lot of Geordi. This one's definitely better than Booby Trap. Booby Trap is not a great episode. It's the one where it was last week's. It's the one where he invents the holodeck Leah Brahms and then makes out with her. Or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And no one seems to think that this is a problem, and the episode doesn't seem to think it's a problem. He's whatever. He's fine. I'm sort of surprised by how little Geordi's involved in the show now that I'm rewatching it.
That's true. He doesn't get a lot sometimes.
Yeah. I thought my biggest problem was it's totally story driven. And if this is my biggest problem, it's not really that big of a deal, but I don't understand why the Romulans would be sending unencrypted messages about like, tell us where you are, when the Enterprise intercepts their thing.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, they don't really explain why the Romulans want to go to this place in the first place, though, either.
No,
like,
it seems
like doing here.
It seems like a terrible planet to go to. There's no reason to be there. Yeah. And they're unless they're just, I don't know if they said it was a scout ship or something, but unless they're just sort of like patrolling around and this is just kind of the Romulan thing to do. Like, are Romulans everywhere and we just can't see them?
Right. That could be.
They could be. It seems
well, what is the name? Tanalak or whatever was saying, they just got off course from their mission. Like, what if it's true? Like, what if it's actually what happened? We just think he's lying because he's a Romulan.
Right. I think Picard says half a light year, but I really don't know if that means quite, like, if you're traveling at a like high warp speed, does that really mean all that much? Like, how fast can you get there? So it is a good point, and I guess it's just the fact that Romulans are lying, and you can tell because they hamily act every single lie that they're talking about. And yeah, I kind of like the Romulans in this one, though. Actually, like, I like Tomalak. I like these sort of they're sort of Klingon-ish, but a little bit different. Yeah. They're like more reserved in a way than the Klingons ever are. They interact with things like, I won't have you do that to me whatsoever, as like this over the top reaction, but they're more believable than the Klingons somehow.
Yeah, there's also the line of like, your parents let you live? When he talked about being Geordi being blind.
Yes, yeah.
Like that kind of thing seems very Klingon also. They have a lot of similarities sometimes.
They do, yeah. They're more similar than they should. I guess it's I guess they're too similar. If you're doing like a psychological analysis, you'd be like, well, they're too similar and they remind each other of their weaknesses or something like that.
Could be.
It is interesting. This is the... Oh, no, it's actually not. Well, the other weak moment in this is Riker takes a slug of whiskey, which seems to be something his character is going to be doing. He does it in the next episode as well, but when Worf comes into his quarters, they do that like horrible student film thing where you show someone's like grit and resolve by having them take a shot for no particular reason, and Riker does it here in his quarters. Even
Classic.
though he can't convince Worf to do the right thing.
I don't know.
Which is
Worf's got his principles.
He does.
By him.
And
you respect that.
The show continues. What did you think? I thought Crusher came on a little bit strong with her insistence that Worf do this.
Yeah, she did.
Didn't seem very doctorly.
No, but she's they're maybe they're trying to get her to be more Pulaski like.
Yeah.
As far as like opinions on stuff and that kind of thing.
Yeah, have her be a little bit more
assertive,
and emotional about things. Yeah, it was like, hey, Doc, guy doesn't want to give his blood. I don't know what to tell you.
You can't make him.
Picard won't order him. Worf won't do it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's I enjoyed this one. I thought it's fairly solid. It's certainly not one of the better ones of the season that I've seen so far, but it's at this point
it's a pretty solid episode.
Yeah, the solid ones are better. It's probably better than solid. So
compared to anything in season 1 or 2, if we put this one side by side, those it would seem like a stellar episode.
That's kind of the problem.
Yeah.
Now I'm running into this issue, and we've seen it with other rating things too, where people come on who, if you're not watching, not that I'm blaming you, but if you don't watch all the episodes, it's kind of difficult to rate them consistently. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
When you watch all of them as trying as this has been to watch TV or whatever, it's a first world problem. But it's like you really start to notice sort of where things fall. Where this episode might seem better if you're not too familiar with the other ones, if that makes any sense.
Right. Yeah, this will be like, if my score on it's basically the outsider's perspective as a unit of television.
Right.
Is it worth your time or not? Whereas yours is like, as a unit of Star Trek, is it worth your time or not?
Yeah, and even more specific, as a unit of TNG. Like
exactly
what you mean. All right, cool. Well, I don't really have much else to say about this one. It's a little bit it's tough to talk about the ones that are pretty solid. Especially this one doesn't make any huge gestures. My final thought would just be I really liked the Worf storyline, mostly because it didn't tie up in a clean little bow. The other two are fairly traditional. Every Romulan subplot seems to have the ship encountering a Romulan ship in or near the neutral zone, and that causing a huge problem.
Yes, that's true.
Which gets a little tiring. And then the Geordi storyline is good. I enjoyed it. It's good for Geordi to do it. Get a little glimpse of his character where he gets to shoot things with a phaser and make a knife that he can climb out of. And then as he struggles around and makes a friend on the planet and all that stuff, and we all grow and live together. What did you think? Any final thoughts? Any takeaways?
I think one of the things that helped this episode too is that it kept stacking deadlines for everything.
Sure.
I noticed they added Geordi's got like 6 hours before he goes crazy. Oh, the Klingons will be here or the Romulans will be here in 5 hours, that kind of thing. So it's like they keep like adding on like closer and closer deadlines to everything.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, it's a just adding sort of a
race against time kind of
right.
feel to
Yeah,
it.
you need to
you have the guy
things.
dying who you need to get information with from before he dies, that kind of thing. So it's like constant like just stacking of deadlines that are closing it faster and faster kind of thing.
Yeah. I guess that's the other. I thought when they inject the Romulan that they bring back because they need to talk to him to ask him if there's any other Romulans. I thought Riker wasted a lot of that valuable time telling him about the situation. It's like
get right to it, man.
Riker gets like right in his grill very authoritatively, and then it's like, you're on the Enterprise. There are 1,708 people on the Enterprise. It's like, Riker, we need to get to the real questions. The guy refuses to answer any questions anyway. He's a perfect celebrity. True. Yeah, so let's we'll wrap this one up. It'll be a little bit short, but we'll wrap it up and get to our final thoughts right after this.
You wish to see me, Captain?
Yes, Lieutenant. I assume you know what it's about.
Yes.
The Romulan vessel will reach us within the hour. If our patient dies, it may be just the excuse the Romulan commander needs to start an incident. The death of a Romulan officer at the hands of the Federation. Think of it.
I have, Captain.
So, there is no question that the Romulan officer is more valuable to us alive than dead.
I understand.
Lieutenant, sometimes the moral obligations of command are less than clear. I have to weigh the good of the many against the needs of the individual and try to balance them as realistically as possible. God knows I don't always succeed.
I have not had cause to complain, Captain.
Oh, Lieutenant, you wouldn't complain even if you had cause.
If you order me to agree to the transfusion, I will obey, of course.
I don't want to order you, but I ask you, I beg you to volunteer.
I cannot.
Lieutenant?
Sir.
That will be all. Picard to Dr. Crusher.
Go ahead.
Do not continue to enlist the cooperation of Lieutenant Worf.
I won't have to, Captain. The Romulan has died.
So, Mr. Modi, what would you rate this one out of on our 5-point scale that we've got going?
I will give it a 3.7.
3.7. Excellent. 3.7 warp nacelles or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think I'm going to give it a 4. So I'm going to go a little bit higher than you. It's I feel definitely it's one of those lines like I try to stay away from the points, so it's like a very strong 3, like
I'll
nearly
round
a 4.
mine up to 4 too.
Yeah. So it's I think you could show this to another person and they'd be kind of into it. It's got a lot going for it in that regard.
It's a good example of what the show can be, kind of thing.
Right.
I think.
Yeah, it is. It covers a lot of bases. You have the or if you want to call it diplomacy, the Picard-Romulan interaction has a little bit of action going on. It has a Worf storyline where he has to deal with his Klingon heritage. It's got
there's a political struggle, there's a racial struggle, there's all kinds of stuff going on in it. Yeah,
and all these storylines really make sense with each other. Nothing feels tacked on, which is very nice. Yeah, so I'll give this one a 4. Modi will round it up, give it a 4 as well. But it feels good to be in the 3rd season, right?
Yeah, definitely. The difference is noticeable.
It's fairly absurd. I still, every episode that I watch now, even just looking at it, I'm like, wow, these episodes are so much better looking than the 2nd season did. Mm-hmm. It's just crazy. But anyway, thank you guys for listening. Mo, do you have anything you want to plug?
Just my YouTube channel, Modi Operandus, youtube.com/Modi Operandus.
Sure, I'll put a link to his channel in the description. You guys should check it out. And Modi, thank you for coming on to talk even more Star Trek.
Thanks for having me back and giving me a decent episode. Sure. I appreciate it.
And we'll be back. You're going to be here. We're sticking around for a little bit. You're going to do the next episode as well, which is The Price. And guys, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the content and you're on YouTube, a like and a comment's always appreciated. If you're on iTunes, a rating and review is always appreciated. So thank you guys for listening. Modi will be back next time with The Price. See ya.